time is 3:30, and I'd like to call to order the Paris Union High School District Board meeting to order. Item 3.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees.
No takers.
Thank you. Item 4.1, to adjourn to a closed session.
Second.
So moved, Mr. Stafford. Come on.
All right.
And who was second?
I did.
Dr. Freeman, please vote.
You shouldn't have to sing. You should already be singing.
Item 4.1 is a 5-0 vote, and we will be going to closed session
And
at 3:31.
there you go, perfect time.
Time is 5:31. We'll reconvene at this time. If you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Can we all please have a moment of silence for everybody around the world who may be dealing with adversity? Thank you.
Item 7.1, recess. Yes, so go to the end meeting and then go to, no, what am I doing? No, it just says recess. Take a recess at 5:30. At this time, we'll take a recess at 5:33 to conduct the regular board meeting of CMI, California. Item 8.1 is a revision, adoption, ordering of agenda, August 21st, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Nelson, and Mr. Stafford. Any discussion? Please vote. Item 8.1 is a 5-0 vote. Item 9.1, reporting out of closed session.
We do have one item to report out of closed session. In closed session by a vote of 5-0, the Board of Trustees ratified the appointment of Eduardo Pacheco as Assistant Principal of Pinacate Middle School with an effective start date of August 12, 2019. That concludes my report out of closed session.
Item 9.2, district update by the superintendent.
Yes. Well, it was a very busy, exciting start of the school year. We seen all the kids showing up at the schools and out visiting. It was a lot of energy, and it was a lot of energy with the staff too. So we're very happy with the start of the school year so far this year. We had an administrative retreat on July 22nd, 23rd down at Azusa Pacific University in Murrieta. They let us use their facility. So we get the administrators away from their school sites and can really focus on what we're trying to work on. And it was great 2 days of training and working on how we're going to build our relationships with our kids and our staff. We had site instructional leaders meet with Nancy Fry last week. She'll be coming back and work with individual sites on teacher clarity on learning targets. And basically there are 3 questions that she answers, and they're really the same 3 as the PLCs. What do you want the kids to learn? How do you know if they learn it? What do you do if they don't? So she's going to be out visiting each of the schools, working with staff members on each campus to work on those things. We had a whole big group of attendees and presenters at the Menifee Google Camp on July 24th and 25th. I see some of them sitting out in the crowd here that were presenting out there. They're representing the district very well. We had nearly 100 attendees attend the Avid Summer Institute down in San Diego for 3 days to work on our AVID program, help them build our AVID program and make it stronger than it is now. On August 1st, we had a summer graduation for the kids that didn't make it in June. We had about 40 kids that walked in August, and when I was talking with them, I really was telling them, it doesn't matter how you got here, it's that you got here. Everyone takes a little different road. The path isn't the same for every kid. It may have taken you 2 months longer, but the end result is that you have a diploma and you can move on and make some choices for yourself from then on. Next Friday, we have the dedication of the new 10 classroom building and snack bar slash restroom slash ticket booth at Paloma Valley High School at 4:30 p.m. out by the new J building. So if you would like to come and be there, be part of that, we'd more than happy to see you there. Oops, I just clicked off my list. You may have heard it already, but Adam Weinberger was selected as second vice president for state CSEA again, another term. So it's great to have our CSA people have that representation at the state level. And my last thing is, today's Kirk's birthday, so everybody just wish Kirk a happy birthday. Happy birthday. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Item 9.3, PSEA President Jason Miller.
Thank you for this time to speak. I told Mr. Bennett several months ago when I came here to speak, I won't pull any surprises up here. And I also told him that I'm hoping that most of what I have to say up here to the board and to the cabinet is positive and not bring any issues here that the board needs to hear that couldn't have been resolved by simply talking and meeting. And to that end, so far so good. Things have been calm, and I like that. The first few weeks of the school year has seen the teachers settling into their classes. For our part, PSEA has worked to set up how it will operate in the coming year. PSEA has been meeting with members to talk to them so that they better understand the implications of their contract, their roles, and the nuances of their rights. For instance, this last week, the members were presented with how their leaves, such as sick leave, personal discretion, etc., are set up and how they can enter leaves effectively to avoid problems. It is my hope that as PSEA members learn more about these procedural undercurrents of their job, they can avoid potential problems for both the district and PSEA, because sometimes they just simply did not know about stuff and they sometimes make mistakes, and now we have to meet. Also, I recently spoke, I thought this was important, I recently spoke with a leader this summer, and we got into a conversation about leaders thinking things through. And I've certainly been guilty of, in the past, just shooting from the hip. And so I'm committed, whether it's a message or a meeting, I've taken this to heart and attempt to think about the details and implications of PSEA actions, and not just shoot from the hip, not just go to a grievance or go to a perb or send out a message that I haven't really sifted through. And when I talk to members, I really think about what I'm going to say. And so I hope that PSEA will continue to do that, and the district will do the same, and they do that. So with that being said, thank you for this time to speak.
Item 9.4, CSEA President Josh Rushing.
Good evening, President Garcia, board members, Superintendent Bennett, and Cabinet. I wrote a speech, then I realized it's been a while since I've been here. I had surgery in June, so I missed a couple. I'd like to start out by thanking the district for our ACE program. It was a pretty big success, I want to say. We got a 2-page spread in the CSEA magazine, which I have a whole bunch of copies to give next week when I remember them. I know I met with a lot of our members and a lot of the managers that said that they felt a new respect for whoever they shadowed, and I think it was kind of a great thing for our members to kind of get through the hump of the last part of the year, kind of a little boost of energy, knowing that people respected them more. What was this? Oh, So I was on the board agenda. You guys are planning on what is it called? Voting. There's the word. On our TA, which I'm excited to hopefully pass. Like I said, we've had a good year of working with the district to solve problems. I did have one question or comment. It was brought to my attention recently that there's been 4 staff involved in accidents outside of Paloma in the last 6 months. Seems kind of high to me, especially since we were off for 2. I don't know if there's ever been a conversation with Menifee, like maybe figure out a way to solve that problem. I know the time I was at Heritage, I think we redid the parking lot twice, which seemed to help traffic there and reduce our accidents there. So I would urge the board maybe work with Menifee, maybe we can get together on something to help that problem, because there's just 4 staff. That doesn't count all the fender benders and every other accident that happens right around Paloma due to the excessive traffic. With that said, thank you very much, and I hope that we have a great year.
Item 9.5, comments by the Board of Trustees. Dr. Arao.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to welcome all of you to the 1920 school year. And I just want to tell I want to take this opportunity to encourage all of our educators. And when I say educators, I'm talking about our teachers, our counselors, psychologists, classified staff, management, custodians, part of the classified, of course, campus supervisors. All of us, we are educators, right? So I want to say thank you and to encourage them to continue to nurture our students through the programs that create a solid cognitive foundation and stimulate their love for learning, to challenge them, continue to challenge the students, because that's what you have been doing during these years, promote college and career opportunities for them, that I know that we have the new program. That I don't know what is the official name of the annex, okay, yeah, where our students are going to be getting college credit when the college professors come to our facilities. Thank you for involving the families also. An example we had from CMI, even though this meeting is the whole district, not CMI, right? But I know that the other high schools at Patriot, I know Heritage, Paloma, there has been a great parental involvement. So continue to do that. And welcome again to the 1920 school year. I have some other things that I would like to address. There are a lot, and I want to address the ones that I have prioritized. I can talk about that in the next board meetings. One of them is about the FAFSA completion as a high school graduation requirement, right? We approved that it was in June, right? Yes. And I want to apologize to some of our constituents when they asked me about that, and I didn't remember right away that we have approved that. Unfortunately, and this is not an excuse, I should have remembered that, even though it was in the consent calendar. But I would like to ask one more time to our superintendent, with all due respect, that in the consent calendar are items that are routine, right? By definition, routine items are the ones, well, we can look at the definition, we can Google it, right? We understand that something that it happens continuously, right, on a regular basis. And approving a high school graduation requirement, like completing the FAFSA, it doesn't seem to me to be a routine, right? So I think that was one element, and our constituents, they were not really aware of that until I received a phone call from a parent who asked me about that, and I said, I'm going to look into that, right? So that's when I asked Mr. Bennett, and you told me that it was in the consent calendar. So I'm asking respectfully that we include in the consent calendar only routine items. And any other item, if we can please put it on the board agenda under action items. Even though there is the FAFSA completion, it is a really important element, and we want to support our students in order to go to college. But we are aware, We would agree that based on the conditions that exist at the national level in our society, there might be some parents that they don't feel comfortable filling out the FAFSA and the DREAM Act. There is fear in our community, and we know the demographics of our district, so that exists. It's a reality. Most of us, we might know what is that, but it exists. I'm telling you, there are a lot of parents. That being said, we know also that there is an opt-out form for the parents who not to fill out the FAFSA and the students, right, in the DREAM Act. But it's important that is advertised in the same way, at the same level, that the FAFSA completion. Because it is my understanding that in some, when the counselors are presenting this, and they are really active and proactive, and I appreciate that, right, because it's going to help the students and overall the schools, and that is our goal, that the students go to college, and they need that support, right, that push to complete the FAFSA. That's why we approve it, and we voted for that, even though it wasn't the consent calendar. But being aware of that, we need to advertise it in the same way. When we talk about new board policy, FAFSA completion, there is nothing about the opt-out form. So if we can make sure that when we present it to the students and the families, it's there. And at the same level, I don't know how I can explain this at the same level. What I mean is high school graduation requirements, we have 3 years of math, 4 years of English, and so on, and then FAFSA completion, and maybe an asterisk, and at the end, with really small fine print, there is an opt-out form. That is not at the same level, right? It has to be very understandable for anybody who wants to opt out, even though that might be defeating the purpose of having as a high school graduation requirement, but in the best interest of our constituents and respecting their ideas and their feelings and how they feel about this important issue, they need to know, I think. So I don't know how the other board members, this is just a petition that I'm making, but probably if you consider like that, we can make that a request to cabinet. What I'm saying, I'm just one vote and doesn't have any weight for you, right? It's just that I was talking. Right, but I'm talking on behalf of the community, and I hope I receive the support in that aspect, because I really fear that I really believe that fear exists, and we need to support our constituents. Yes, inform them. They have the right. They can do it. Go ahead. We really motivate you to do it. It's in your best interest. But if at the end of the day they decide not to do it for any reason, and I know that we even support them in the DREAM Act, I don't have social security number, don't worry about it, you can put 0000. That's what we tell them, right, when they are completing the FAFSA in the financial application. But even if we say that, they say, no, I'm sorry, I don't feel like doing it, we need to respect that. That is about the FAFSA. Another comment, and it's going to be the last one for this time that I remember. I would like to see if it would be possible. We're already going to get information about the AP classes, but I was thinking about the health requirements, the mandated elements that our students need to learn and be exposed in order to satisfy the state requirements for health. And it was my understanding that we were developing the course last year. Is that correct? That was my understanding, that there was a staff member. I know we cannot talk about names, it's a personal issue.
We were developing the units that needed to be done during the freshman foundations and other courses. Okay. And we also had the county come in and do some of the mandated ones school-wide. They had period level assemblies with the kids and did it through there. So
did we finalize that curriculum where it's included all and now it's in foundations? It is.
Yes, we worked on it last year, and it's built into the College and Career Foundations course. And then also, as Mr. Bennett shared, the requirement you're talking about, the California Healthy Youth Act, we work with public health.
Yes.
They actually come in and present to our ninth graders to make sure they meet those requirements.
Okay, yeah. Because I was thinking, I remember a few years ago, we were asked for board approval in order to transfer, not offer health anymore, and the PE teachers were going to be included in the curriculum. And then the next thing that I learned is that was changed, but I didn't see board approval. So it was not clear to me when, in order to do it, was to transfer that to the PE teachers, and with some credit, it was brought here for discussion for us to know, and then when we reversed the process, there was no board approval. Can you just clarify for?
And if you would like, we can share a plan with you at one of the upcoming board member meetings. We can show you specifically what those units are. We're presenting in College and Career Foundations, and we can also show you our schedule for public health in terms of what they come in and present as well.
Yeah, but I think the fundamental question was not that. It was in terms of board approval. I was just confused how come at one time we needed it and now we don't. I just want to make sure that we were following the right the right process. So if we need to approve that change, we will do it in the future. I don't know. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, just wondering. So those are the comments on the next board meeting. I have. Before also something really important that Mr. Jason Miller mentioned. I just want to say thank you, sir, for your perspective and what you share about the way that you want to work with us through the district, right? Because they represent the Board of Education. So I really, really appreciate it. Talking on those terms, I just want to reassure you and all our staff and our constituents that our commitment is to do what is right, what is fair for everybody, right? That being said, I would like to see, I don't know if it's possible, right, from the business department, if we can get kind of a presentation how the funding is distributed to the different schools, based on the unrestricted budget that we provide to the schools, how much goes to Paris High School based on the number of students, the supplemental income, what is their budget, how much is allocated for teachers' resources and support for professional development and all of that, and what is the basis of that? Because we have the big picture in terms of the budget at the district level, but I would like to see how again, it's just a request if that is possible. My objective is to ensure that the school sites, that they have enough funding to provide the resources that our teachers need in the classroom, right? So they don't need, I don't envision the fact of teachers, and I know that a lot of the teachers, they use their own money from their pockets to buy some resources, some things. And I don't think that should be the case, right? It is our responsibility to provide what they need in order to support our students. Also, on those terms, I know for a fact that there might be some teachers that at some point they are to the point that they need to say, okay, if you bring these to the classroom, basic things, and I think I have mentioned this before, basic things like even tissues or things that they need in the classroom, because we don't provide it to them, you are going to get extra points, and the students get extra points. I think the points should be for the learning process, what they need, and I wouldn't like to put the teachers on those situations that they have to spend their money in order to satisfy the basic needs of our students, right? And I don't know also if Mr. Bennett, probably you already solved this situation, and not only teachers, any staff members, when they request to use the Y bands, that we call it like that, we call it Y bands, that they are going to transport, that they are going to take students, and that there is a form that they need to check the tire pressure, the air pressure at 5 in the morning when they are getting used to before they use it, and they need to sign that. And there is not even how do you call that instrument they use to check? They is not provided. You need to check the oil, the engine oil, the transmission oil, the brake fluid. I'm envisioning a teacher who gets there and there is a form that they need to sign that is like that. So I think we talk about that. I don't know if that was addressed because that shouldn't be in my
It was
opinion.
addressed and it was
you
sent
know.
to the board in a Friday update last year.
Yes. Okay. It was already addressed. So we are looking at those things that the staff are bringing here. And you have seen that in another board meeting, staff had brought concerns, and if they are valid concerns, because how you said there are the rights of our constituents, also there are responsibilities, right? And we are going to be looking also, because that's what we want, right? Rights and responsibilities at the same level to ensure that those rights and that we are doing the right thing in general. So that is my perspective. So thank you for your perspective on sharing that. And I'm sure we are going to have a great school year, and we are going to move forward for the benefit of our students. Thank you.
Ditto. No, I'm teasing. On a more serious note, I want to thank all the teachers for everything you guys do, all the classified employees, all the administrators, everybody working together to make sure our students are getting a top-notch education. Really excited for the new school year. Can't wait till like sports seasons get into full swing. Get a chance to get out there and see the kids in action. It'll be lots of fun. Really just wish everybody a good start to the school year and a great total school year coming up.
Thank you. All right, I have two items I'd like to address. The first one, I'm going to share with you something that was sent to us. I've discussed this with our board president and with Mr. Bennett, and they said this was the best place to present this. Recognize excellence in school board governance. CSBA's Board Member of the Year Award nominations are due August 30th. Do you know a school board member who exemplifies best practices and effective governance and boardmanship? If so, the CSBA Board Member of the Year Award program wants to honor them. Help shine a light on outstanding board members in districts and county offices of education throughout California. In its inaugural year, the CSBA Board Member of the Year Awards program promotes excellence in education by recognizing outstanding board members in school districts and county offices. And with this in mind, I would like to nominate our board president, Mr. Ed Garcia, for us to submit his name for nomination for this award. It's the inaugural, and since this is your first term as president, and I have seen, and I know the others have seen it too, that such a great growth here in his governance. He's done everything as far as the training has been concerned. He's been everywhere. The difference between December and now is just night and day. In addition, he has always been very much involved with the education of all of our students. Not only does he work as a security guard for another district, but he's also a union member officer for that district. And I can't imagine anybody being more deserving at this particular time than our president, Mr. Garcia. I would like to how do I do about this? So I asked for, I'd like to have him nominated. Do I ask for consensus, or do I have to make a motion, or what? Well, I'd like to make sure that we all agree to this. So do we have consensus with that? Okay, well then we'll work out the details later. You're quite welcome. Well, you're welcome. Yeah, and I think that if you win, you got another 3 years up there. The other item is that earlier, and this was set as a precedent by our esteemed superintendent, he embarrassed one of our cabinet members with talking about his birthday. But I would like to point out that on the 11th of this month, Dr. Charles Newman, President Ed Garcia, and moi all had a birthday.
Happy birthday.
We have,
Belated birthday.
it totally amazes me that we'd have such, it just blows me away that I thought I was the only one who had that birthday. But no, it just shows what great job Leos do as far as leadership. So that's mine.
We didn't tell you about the new tradition. The tradition that's been for years. You have to give everybody $1 for it when it's your birthday.
You'll have to see my daughters. It isn't the first of the month.
I'd just like to say welcome back to another year. I know everybody looks forward to it. This year, I want to get out to more of your sporting events. I think one of the board members requested a calendar with all events, and then I came in behind him and asked for the same thing. Just want to go to some of the events that see the kids, what they're doing. Could be a softball game, could be a basketball, volleyball, whatever sport. Would like to come see the students, spend some time and observe what they're doing. It's important to me that they get to see us and know that we support them. I just want to make sure, and I'll ask Grant for a new ID that when I step on campus, you don't throw me off because because we've got very good security, and I don't have a picture on my ID. So, well, we should all have a picture ID so we can show them when we come on campus. But yeah, but anyway, there's a couple of issues that I had. I don't know. Is this my place where I should voice concerns? Okay, you want to wait till the agenda item hits?
If it's that agenda item, wait for that agenda item after we make the motion.
Oh, okay. I want to speak on a particular agenda item, but we're not there yet. So we'll get to that when we get there. A lot of positive things. Maintenance and operations is really done a great job. I toured the schools to see the custodial work and see the sites. They did a great job. Their schools are really never done. It's a constant effort. And the first day that school goes by, you start from the beginning because the kids are right back at it. So with that saying, I understand that you're going to face all kinds of difficulties with facilities and teachers, but I also do appreciate Jason and his demeanor and the way he's speaking. I really think that that's a positive way to go, and I also need to practice that myself. So thank you so much, and that's all for now.
Well, most importantly, I do have a list myself. I want to say welcome back to everybody. It doesn't matter what position you are. I want everybody to understand this board right here is the best board in the whole world. I don't care what anybody says. Not because he's nominating me. That's irrelevant. It's because their passion for these children, their passion on making sure everyone gets a good education. For you guys, what you do, you can't even measure the level of oh my goodness, I don't even know how to put it all in words, but you guys are amazing. And I know you're going to continue on being amazing. So I thank you all for doing what you do, especially Mr. Santos. You're turning that school around. I'm seeing a big change. Keep up the good work. I don't know if I really should say this, but Working Scholars is going around for the city of Paris. If you guys heard, if you don't know, tell everybody. It's a free degree. September 12th at 7 p.m. at City Hall. Tell them to go sit in orientation. It's free. I know there a lot of people in Paris are always talking about we want more education. We don't have the resources. It's free. So, just throwing
Can
that
I jump in for a second?
Absolutely.
I received the flyers from that organization, and Mr. Skorpanich is doing a research because they have to live in the city of Paris to qualify.
Right.
So he's going to pull out all our employees that live in the city of Paris, and we're going to distribute that flyer to them.
Awesome. Good job. Good. You know what? And I didn't direct my attention to you, too. Thank you guys, too. Like, seriously, you guys are phenomenal. One of the things that we're facing in our schools right now is mental illness. You guys have been hearing about these crazy shootings and ignorance, just ignorance in the streets, people responding different ways. I'm only bringing it up because I'm in a position to say something. So I'm asking you, if you guys see something, odd behavior, say something. Address the right people. Don't be scared. It's better to be safe than sorry. I'm not telling you go call CPS. I'm telling you, have the right people address the issue because this is getting crazy, everything going on in the world. I want you all to know you can reach out to us, whether you're union, administrators, classified teacher, it doesn't matter who you are, you can reach out to us, we listen. And I think our track record is proving that to you guys. I want to give a huge shout out to Marv, if you guys can direct that to him. He did something this last week, and I appreciate that. And I think you heard the story, but I appreciate that a lot. That's big. That's going above and beyond. So kudos to him, or attaboy, as we say in my district. And I want to highlight what Dr. Rao was talking about, the opt-out form. I support that 100% because, you know, we have different clientele here. You know, not everybody can afford it. People are embarrassed of their status or situation. So I support it, and I'm actually going to ask if we can all take a little vote so that way we can put the district in a position and say, hey, not only do we encourage you all to go to college, but we also want to give you the opportunity, if you can't afford it or you have certain criteria, there's a form. You at least have that information. You know, information doesn't hurt people. It's always good. So I don't know how you guys feel, but if we could at least do a show of hands to at least push through, say, hey, when you promote the FAFSA, at least have the form present
So it's clear,
at the
because
minimum.
that is our policy.
Right.
Yeah.
At the minimum. Are you guys okay with that?
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
I would ask Mr. Bennett if there's something, is there any
Oh,
problem
yeah,
with that
yeah.
kind of thing?
I concur.
Or what is
We-
the,
Well, as far as the form, I think we already have that all already developed. It was part of the agenda item last month, so they would have those available when they're doing the FAFSA nights and meetings at the school site. And it also was delineated very clearly about how the parents could opt out in the administrative regulation. Board policy said one part of it, and then in the AR, it's how we implement it, and it says in there, FAFSA is required, but then it has, the second paragraph is the parents can opt out, and there's the form connected to that, so we have that in place already.
Connected to the FAFSA?
To the board policy we have right now.
Okay,
Or
so
administrative regulation,
so
but
so
we
then let
will-
me highlight
We
this.
will have those available at
Okay.
each school as they're working through that.
So,
benefit of
go ahead.
when you could give a minute to describe what FAFSA is in case there's somebody that doesn't know?
FAFSA provides the free funding for students basically to go to college based on their incomes. And so that's what FAFSA is. We've been doing that now. Basically, the state of California has been doing that for the past, I think, probably about the past 4 or 5 years, we've been doing a FAFSA push. And so Riverside County has led that work, meaning that Riverside County has set the tone where the state right now is considering making FAFSA graduation requirements. Two states have already made FAFSA a graduation requirement. Val Verde is one of the districts that have led that work. Currently in Val Verde, it is a requirement for students to complete FAFSA. So what we added in this year was for FAFSA to be a requirement with a soft rollout. So we understood that. And so Julie Zerold is currently, and Robert Bruff is currently working with counselors in terms of how we're going to roll it out. We realized that it was rolled out late last year because it is something that we're pushing, because if we ensure kids are qualifying for the FAFSA, we're also know that the research says if kids know how they're going to be funded to go to college, they typically will show up to college. So it's in our best interest to ensure that most of our kids are completing the FAFSA. So that's why built in there is that opt-out policy. We're not by any means trying to lock kids in. We understand the sensitivity issues. Dr. Rao, very good point. We're going to consider that big time. But I would request, and totally, whatever the board decides, we are totally serving at your will to allow us to do our normal FAFSA push. And then when we reach the springtime and we identify kids are not signing it, at that moment we'll begin to talk about opt-out policies. By no means do we want to have any kid not graduate because they didn't complete the FAFSA. Our goal is that every single kid leaving our district, one of our goals, goal 2, is that every single kid will be prepared college and career readiness. Part of that is they understand what their next step is. And so part of that is them ensuring when we kick this off in October that all of our kids will understand how to fund their college and they start planning prior to leaving us. But then once we hit the spring, we will consider any kid will be able to opt out of that process.
I just want to add, yes, and that is the background of approving. That's why we approve it,
Yeah.
right? That reaffirms, right, that we didn't have this discussion because it was in the consent calendar one more time, right? And there is the issue here that we are discussing is not about if we are going to provide that. We are in favor of that. That is a great opportunity for our students to have access to financial aid, and they can go to college. However, we also approve the opt-out form. And for consistency purposes, for honesty, the perspective of being honest. We approve one thing, and then we are just focusing on one, and we know that there are some parents that might not feel comfortable doing it, right? And we are not going to encourage not to do it. We can say there is at this point, there is that related. You put your social security number there or 000. This information is not going to go to ICE, right? Because let's talk about the reality. That's what we are talking about, right? And that is the issue here. And they need to know, but if you still decide not to do it and the student agrees not to do it, this is the opt-out form. And when we advertise it, FAFSA completion and REMACT. If you decide not to do it, there is a waiver because we approve it. They are at the same level. It's a high school graduation requirement, and it's the opt-out form too. And I can understand that can defeat the purpose of the policy, but we need to be conscientious about that. Otherwise, let's vote again and just approve FAFSA. And if we get 3 or more votes, just FAFSA completion is a requirement without the opt-out form, so be it. That's the decision of the board. But if it says there, they need to know that, right? That's my perspective.
Yeah, and so just be clear, it's not our intention, but we want to, it is our goal. We've already discussed with counselors that we need to be sensitive to Dr. Rao's concerns in regards to kids. We feel that 100%. When we roll it out, we'll keep that at the forefront of what we're doing. I think our normal occurrence with the I guess my thought was that our normal occurrence with the FAFSA with our college kickoff day, that we kick it off like we've done for the last 5 years. It's a normal kickoff. We push FAFSA, but once we reach toward the end of the semester, we will begin to roll out those opt-out forms. My only concern is that if we roll it out together, we might mix it a little bit. So if we could, so that would be my only request. We want to be sensitive to the fact we've just entered into this requirement, and so we don't want to force feed people this particular that's not our intention at all. So we understand that. So we will include that. And maybe we can discuss in terms of whatever the board wishes when we bring those opt-out forms out and start talking. Is it January? Is it December? But to start it on the beginning, I would be concerned that we wouldn't get our same turnout. That would be my only concern. Now, if the board wishes us to do that, we serve at your will, but I would like to hold off until, if we could wait to maybe January to start rolling those out and including that conversation. But I guess we'll rely kind of on your recommendations for that.
Well, if I hear correctly, what you are proposing is, you mentioned the same way that we have been doing it
Correct.
in the last 5 years.
Correct.
That means that we are not going to say, but if you don't do it, you are not going to graduate. Is that what you're saying, right? We are not going to be mentioning that is a high school graduation, that if you don't fill it out, you are not going to graduate.
I don't believe our intention was to ever say you're not going to graduate, because I don't think any of us are going to allow a kid not to graduate based on FAFSA. I think our intention initially is to say, this is a graduation requirement, fill out the FAFSA, and then when we reach the point where we get a certain percentage of kids not filling it out, then we'll provide the opt-out clause in for students. And that can come as soon as you would wish that to come. I'm just saying our initial rollout, if we're going to really ensure kids complete it, then our initial rollout, we would love for it to be based on a requirement. But as soon as you would make the recommendation, we'll start presenting the opt-out policy.
So Dr. Rao, if I can make a comment, maybe we need to sit down with them and have a
Exactly, that's what I
meeting
was.
and talk about what needs to be addressed there and how we could roll it out together, so that way we're proactive, because there is a goal we're all trying to meet.
Yes,
We're all
we
trying to be
support that.
successful, right?
Yes,
So I'm with you, I stand with you, I support you in this, and I definitely support you. So are you okay with us convening
Definitely,
somehow?
we can
We'll
talk
make it
about
work.
the
Now, I have to
logistics.
ask, if it's Dr. Around myself, would we be in violation of the Brown Act, or can it be us two and you, or whoever?
Yeah, we can sit down.
Yeah, we can talk
Or
about
any
it,
other
yeah.
board
I would love
member
to
in
do
that
that.
case.
That'd be awesome.
Does anyone else want to sit in this? Yeah, not more than two.
Yeah, no
I'll
more
sit
than
down
three.
if somebody else wants to.
No more than two.
Would you? No, Dr. Brown?
I would just add that since you said that Valverde has been a leader in this, and they have pretty much the same demographics as this district, that what they're doing, we might check and see how they're handling it, and if it's working for them, we could just adapt what they're doing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and just to summarize and finalize this,
Same language, yeah.
I'm not representing Valverde and any other district. I'm representing my constituents, and I'm looking for the best interests of them.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Sounds good. Yep.
The information that's in FAFSA, when you fill this out, is that accessible by any other agency other than us?
Not to my knowledge, just
Okay.
just for FAFSA. But there is that, how I'm telling you, that fear. People don't trust. There is not that trust in our institutions at this time for a lot of things that are happening. Everybody knows what we're talking about, and I just mentioned that some parents are fearful that information is going to go to ICE. And we're talking about specifically about undocumented students, that they are going to fill out the DREAM Act, and that they just don't want to do it, and we encourage them to do it, and we assure them that that is not. So let's continue to do that, but we are going to talk about the logistics and details later on. Thank you.
Well, that concludes my part. Moving on. Item 10.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees, non-agendized items.
We have one this evening.
We have Ruth Rivera. If you come on up. Before you start speaking, I have something to say. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. I can't talk today. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation. Depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard, the president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue, and may ask that the additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. And now I turn it over to you.
Hello, today I bring forward a hurdle that I hope we can overcome together. Paris High School is made up of mainly minorities. According to the Hetchinger report, enrollment in the 468 best funded and most selective four-year institutions is 77% white, while enrollment at the 3,250 lowest funded community college and four-year universities is 43% black and Hispanic. We cannot be satisfied with the current graduation rate and low math proficiency. We should be preparing students for careers and the future. Amazon is offering to pay the entire AP Computer Science A course, as well as offer internships after graduation. By 2020, 1.4 million jobs in computer science will be available, with only 30% being able to fill up. The STEM field is becoming more and more important, and so is the need for the students at our school to become exposed to such courses. In 2014, not a single African American took the exam in 11 states, no Hispanic or Latino took it in 8 states, and no female took it in 5. Even now, only 28% of the test takers are female, and 21% are underrepresented minorities. Bringing an AP Computer Science A course and encouraging students to take part in STEM would help our students become better prepared for college, invigorate their brains, and prepare PHS students to explore new careers. As we are all aware, Paris is full of factories. Many graduates from here are compelled to get minimum wage jobs as soon as they graduate. The ones that go to UCs are typically required to take a computer science course. By offering this course, students can save money and time by earning credits in high school and enter college better prepared. UCs now recognize AP Computer Science as a third recommended year of science and not just as an elective. We have dedicated students who want to take the class. They are dedicated and should not be deprived of such opportunities that they will soon come to learn other students had when they go to college. So why is AP Computer Science A now being offered? We were short of 2 students. My classmates and I believe that if this class is offered this year, the demand for it will increase in the years coming up. Avid students that need to take a third recommended year of science will have broader spectrum of science courses to take, and clubs such as robotics will have a course that can prepare them for the future. Students do not choose not to participate in a class because they simply do not want to, but because they do not have the opportunity to do so. Most classes are currently still going through the introductory phase, and schedules are yet not concrete. The majority of the students who want to take the APCSA course have had the teacher before at some point and understand the way her class works. We have all worked on 3 of the first lessons that were assigned to us by our teacher over the summer and will not be behind if this class were to open this year.
Thank you. I want to thank you for coming up and letting us know. We're governed by the Brown Act, so we're not really supposed to respond to all the comments, but thank you, and it is being considered. Okay. Item 11.1, consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Dr. Freeman, Dr. Rao. Any discussion? No? Please vote. What's that?
Mine's not showing up.
Item 11.1 is a 5-0 vote. Item 12.1, advanced placement update.
Yes, we have a presentation, an update for our advanced placement for this school year. So we're going to have Julie Zero. She'll come up and she'll provide us an update. I believe she's also, there was a ton of data that was available for us. And so she could have actually spent an hour presenting on AP. I don't think you necessarily desired that. So
That's
it's,
the final.
so she provided you with a binder of all the data that is available. And then
Yeah.
she'll present, she'll take some time, kind of give you some
Thank
kind of
you.
highlights of the data.
Thank you, Dr. Newman. And that's when I made the request. I don't know if you remember a few meetings, board meetings ago, we talked about actionable data, meaningful, something that we are going to do, data that we are going to do something about it for the benefit of the students, right? Thank you.
So good evening, Board President Garcia and the board, Superintendent Mr. Bennett, Cabinet. I'm excited to be able to share some information about our AP placement program at the Paris Union High School District. Very excited to hear all the conversations today revolving around college and career readiness. I think that's been really a big focus of our district in the last 5 years, and AP plays a really big role in that. So exciting to see students show up and passionate about wanting to have opportunities for our students. Love the conversation about the FAFSA as well. That's something that we've spent a lot of time over the last 5 years really focusing on with our students. And I think just really the focus on making sure all of our families are informed, I think is the biggest focus when it comes to what the FAFSA means and the whole process with the FAFSA. We've had some sites do some amazing work with making sure that parents are aware. Last year, we even had Mr. Santos actually out knocking on doors and talking to parents, which is where we really saw a lot of growth when it came to the FAFSA. So I think it's just really the focus on making sure that parents are aware more than anything. So with the AP data, we're focused on goal 2, which is our college and career readiness when we look at our LCAP goals. And this is just a real quick snapshot as far as what our advanced placement enrollment looks like. So you will see that there's been some fluctuation in the enrollment, but what I want you to also notice is on the next slide where we have the data in regards to dual enrollment. So you'll see that we've had some fluctuation with our AP enrollment, but that's also because we've offered a lot more courses and opportunities for our students to also take dual enrollment classes. So what you have in your binder, I'll give a real quick review so you understand what you can also go back and look at afterwards is in your binder you have a district overview that has scores from 2019, 2018, and 2017, so you have 3 years of scores. Then you have a 3-year comparison. Then you also have it by school site, and we're going to talk a little bit about it throughout the presentation, but not quite as detailed as you have in your binder. And then you'll also have at the end, we have our instructional planning report for the district, which this goes through each and every course that we offer in AP, and it also gives us where we scored well, and it also gives us a breakdown of what course or what types of questions are asked on each of the AP exams, and how many questions are asked, so that we can take it back and work with our teachers to look at those AP scores and how we can improve in those areas. So we're going to be looking at all four of our high schools, including CMI. So this is the 5-year summary in regards to our enrollment and how successful they've been overall with students scoring 3 or higher. So you'll see that CMI has increased their enrollment in the AP courses. Over the last few years, there's been some fluctuation from 2016 up to 2019. And again, just emphasizing the fact that CMI and Paris High are working together to offer classes with our AP courses. So they are having students transported over from CMI and going to dual enrollment classes as well as AP courses. So this is a snapshot from 2019. I didn't include for the presentation all 3 years for the summary, just because we'd end up with probably about 50 slides if I did that. So this is just from 2019 scores. And I think the important thing is when we're looking at the overall scores, these are students scoring 3 or higher on the AP exam. And when we're looking at this data, we also want to keep in mind how many students are taking the AP exam. So when you see 100%, it is great that we had 100% of the students that took the AP test did pass, but we did only have 2 students take the calculus BC. So when you look at the data in your binder, you'll have the raw data that actually tells you how many students took the exam. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about each number of students that took each of the exams, but I think something to look at is one of the higher courses where we had more students take the test is the Spanish language and culture class. So 53% is a fairly reliable number as far as how the students are doing. So a little bit more than half the students that took the AP Spanish language and culture exam scored a 3 or higher. When we're looking at heritage, you'll see that this is the enrollment over the last 5 years. You'll see that we did have a slight drop in 2019, but I would also attribute that to the fact that we've offered more dual enrollment classes at heritage over the last 3 years. So you'll see some fluctuation in that, but when you look at the actual overall success of our students from 2018 to 2019, you'll see that it's fairly consistent with 44% of the students taking the AP exams scored a 3 or higher. And then here's a look at the heritage courses that are offered, and also looking at where you're seeing the success. 100% of our chemistry and 100% of the Chinese language and culture. Well, we don't actually offer Chinese language and culture at Heritage, but one thing we did this year, working with all of our school sites and our college and career readiness counselors, is we did go through and we looked at home languages for all of our students. And any student can take an AP exam even if they're not enrolled in the course. So we spoke to students that might have an AP course that they could take a test in and encourage them to take the test. So that's why you'll see that we actually had 2 students take the Chinese test at Heritage for and scored a 3 or higher. So some of the courses to really look at Heritage where we have a lot of success is also, we see a lot of success for our students in the Spanish language and culture with, we had 42 tests and 95% of them score 3 or higher. So that's an excellent pass rate for our students. And then also Spanish literature and culture, we had a 67% pass rate for that. We had 18 students enrolled in that. So nice to see students really taking advantage of opportunities. We did see some really good growth also with AP Euro. We had more students pass that exam this year than we had in the past as well. When we're looking at Paris High School, you'll see that we've stayed fairly consistent across the board in the last 3 years in regards to enrollment with students, which is exciting to see the pass rate improve. So we've seen some growth up to 46% of our students that are scoring a 3 or higher. So some focus areas for Paris High when you're looking at their overall scores. They also had some really good success in Spanish language and culture. They had 86 students that took the exam, and they were at a 90% pass rate. And then they also had 68 students take the Spanish literature and culture exam, with 46% of the students passing. We've also seen some students do really well in the studio art, and this is where students are being proactive and working with the art teacher to take this opportunity to submit. The art is a little bit different than the typical AP exam. They actually have to put together like a portfolio. So they're not just doing it at the end of the school year, they're actually working through it for the year with the teacher. And so that's also something that the students have been able to do at Paris High. And then looking at Paloma Valley, you'll see that they've been fairly consistent as well with their enrollment within the AP classes, especially in the last 2 years, and seeing some growth up to 48% of the students passing with a 3 or higher this year in 2019. And then some highlights for Paloma. I think something really to focus on is the calculus AB and BC numbers for our students. 2 extremely difficult AP exams that I wouldn't do very well on if I had to take those exams. And the calculus AB class had 155 students take the exam, which is a tremendous amount of students, with 50% of the students scoring 3 or higher. And then the calculus BC, they had 74% of their students pass, and they had 38 students that took the test. So those are really big numbers for math. We don't typically see those at the other schools, so kudos to them for getting those enrollments. And then they also have done really well in the Spanish language and culture, with 79 students testing and 81% of the students scoring 3 or higher for the language. And then for the lit, they had 19 students test, and 84% of their students score 3 or higher. So I wanted to kind of give a snapshot of the district, and without trying to do it in too many slides, I kind of broke it down so that you're looking at the 3 different categories. So we're going to look at electives. This is electives for the district. So you'll see, and again, some of the numbers may come across as skewed, like with the Chinese language and culture, because only 2 students took it. So 100% of the students did pass. But I think the ones to look at are the ones that we mentioned for each of the school sites, where our Spanish language and culture as a district, 85% of our students that are taking the test are scoring a 3 or higher. 56% for Spanish lit and culture are scoring 3 or higher. And then looking at computer science, which is something that was just mentioned earlier, is we're seeing some growth in the number of students that are taking computer science, and exciting to see that 64% of our students that did take the test are scoring a 3 or higher on the exam. And then here's a 3-year course comparison for each of those courses within the electives. So when you look at the electives, these are typically courses that you would have in art, some of the foreign languages, and you'll see that this year we offered 4 different languages or 4 different AP exams for languages, which is more than we have in the past. So we also had Italian students take the test as well. And then when we look at history and social science as a district, human geography, I think that's something to really look at, because typically the human geography test is for 9th grade students. And so to see 44% of our students scoring 3 or higher that took the test for human geography, I think that's a tribute to really reaching out and working with our collaborative districts and encouraging 9th grade students that are coming into us to take AP exams. And I think seeing scores improve means we're doing a better job of providing support for our students. So here's also a 3-year comparison where you will see the comparison in regards to all of the history classes. We do offer world history and European history, which are both 10th grade classes. So when you look at both those together, I would consider that those are both 10th grade courses for our students. So seeing that we have both offered, I believe 2 of the campuses actually offer both courses, so students have different opportunities to take an AP course in 10th grade. And then the last group that we look at are our AP scores for math, English, and science, and this is the 2019 scores. So looking at the district scores as a whole, 69% of our students that are taking the AP exam for calculus BC are scoring 69%. And then looking at also the chemistry, we don't have as many students. Usually we only have 1 section at the school sites, but to see more and more students taking that opportunity. And then I'd like to also point out, although we don't have a ton of students taking the physics, AP physics exam, it's nice to know that we are offering the AP physics class. Paloma is offering that class, and he even had 3 students take the test in those other two physics areas without being enrolled in the physics in that specific course for that test. So they were taking AP Physics, but they weren't taking the physics class specifically for electricity and they did not pass. But kudos to them for taking the opportunity to take the test. And the teacher's done an amazing job reaching out to those students to encourage them to take the test. I think that's been one of the big pushes as well, is encouraging students to take the exam and then also being able to provide opportunities. We do have it built into the LCAP as far as supporting our students when they need support taking the test. We have some students that take 4 or 5 tests, and so if you're looking at the cost for taking that many tests, it's important that we provide opportunities to help support them take the test if they're not able to afford it. And then here's the 3-year comparison in regards to the math, English, and science 3-year comparison. One thing that I would like for us to focus on as an area of growth really would be looking at our English language and composition and the English Lit, because we probably have the highest number of students enrolled in those courses, but really want to focus on encouraging and supporting them to take the opportunities for some of the AP readiness opportunities at UCR, as well as opportunities with our teachers to provide support to help them improve those scores. We saw a lot of students scoring within that 2 category, so actually going back and looking at those students and seeing how close they were and looking at those instructional planning reports, that's what's really going to help us move to that next level, I think, is looking at those reports, because it does break it down by content question within each of the courses, how many questions were offered for multiple choice as well as those free response, and really having students do a little bit more practicing of what that looks like with those free response questions, because I think that's sometimes where the kids get hung up is those free response questions, and providing more opportunities for them to practice. And then I would also say that with the adoption of the new English curriculum for our 9th and 10th grade students, really working with our teachers in the course development for our advanced 9th and 10th grade courses to ensure that there's some vertical alignment with those AP teachers, making sure that students, when they're going into the AP Comp and AP Lit classes, we're doing lots of work in the front end with our 9th and 10th grade students, preparing them to take the courses in that junior and senior year, as well as the dual enrollment classes.
Yeah, Ms. Cyril, now that you're talking about the AP English language and Lit, I notice it's a pattern, right? And it's not only in this district. In your expert opinion, what do you think is happening that you saw AP Spanish language and Lit is over 90% of the students are passing the AP. In English language and Lit, we have an average of 20%, 19. I think the highest one was 42%. Why that big discrepancy? Both of them are languages. One is even foreign language, and I'm assuming that the students who are taking AP English, they are not ELs, right? They might be RFEPs, right, but not ELs. So what do you think is happening, and what can we do to help bring the English to the same level that the Spanish?
Yeah, most definitely. I think one of the big key ideas, I think, is making sure that the instructional strategies that we're using with our students, when we look at the number of students that their primary language is Spanish, we have a huge percentage of students that's their primary language. So if we're delivering content to our students without making sure that we're using multiple modalities in that delivery, as well as providing more opportunities for them to practice. I think the writing piece is where we see a lot of students get hung up. And so, again, one of the things that we'll talk about in one of the next slides, but is some of the things that we're focused on for the upcoming school year. So we do have 3 days designed for working with our AP teachers, pulling teachers in, groups of teachers in, and then those teachers are going to be going back and working with their school sites on developing that plan on how to approach where we've seen some of our strengths and some of our challenges in regards to our AP scores. Because there are some really great resources within those instructional planning reports, because you can see where you've hit the mark within the the exam for that particular content, and then you can see where you really missed it. And that's one of the first things that we're going to be doing when we're meeting with AP teachers in September is all the teachers are going to be able to look at their own instructional planning report for their course. And then they'll also be able to look at their own student score and how well their student scored. So I think that's an important place for us to start, is to see where we're hitting the mark and where we're missing the mark, and making sure that we're putting in interventions and supports in place so that all of our students have better access to that.
Yeah.
Or looking at even having teachers be able to have conversations about, because several of our sites have multiple teachers teaching the same course, which is not always the case. But with English, because you usually have so many more teachers teaching English, there's more students enrolled, that sometimes you have multiple teachers teaching like AP Lit or AP Comp. And so being able to look at scores and working together in collaboration and seeing, oh, you did really well in this area, what did you do to address these things? And then being able to share those ideas. I think sometimes when they are singletons, that's where the district collaboration comes into play, is now they have opportunities to also collaborate with teachers at other school sites if there's not another teacher that teaches that same content at their school site. So I'm looking forward to working with the AP teachers. We're doing some collaboration with the College Board as well as with our COE to help with some of those trainings. Our College Board rep has been amazing. He's come out and really helped support some of the transitions for us. So I think we're going to see some really good focus this year with our teachers.
Yeah, and to provide the support to the teachers, right? Because you mentioned a really important element that you said that in Spanish language and Lit, most of the students, their primary language was Spanish. So in that terms, then if we transfer that line of thinking, if we desegregate the AP English language and Lit and we look at the EOs, do you think it's going to be at the same percent, 87 passing? Instead of the 40 of, because I can understand the implication, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we have some RFEPs, their primary language is not English. That means that if we look at that, Spanish language and Lit is in the 90s because their primary language is Spanish. Would that mean that for EOs, it would be in the 90s also?
We would hope so,
Yeah,
for sure,
probably
right?
But we have the data, right?
Yeah,
We can
no, oh yeah, I
identify-
mean,
we can
there's.
find out that.
There's,
Just wondering.
not off the top of my head for sure, but
No, I know,
there's
I know.
so many layers of data.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really beneficial, and why I provided the binder for you guys, so you can
Yes.
look through it, because if I tried to go through it all,
Yeah.
you guys would probably be asleep up there if I tried to go through everything. But the College Board does a really great job of disaggregating the data, and then we also have some really great programs and great people that are really great at disaggregating our data also. So, I mean, there's definitely different layers that we could look
Yeah.
at in regards to that specific data.
Yeah, and thank you for looking into that, because I know that most of the time data is kind of boring for some people, but it is really important because that is going to let us identify those strengths and weaknesses that we have been talking about and what we are going to do about it.
Yeah.
Right, the cornerstone of the PLC, Mr. Bennett was mentioned. Thank you.
Right. So I won't read through all of these because I've mentioned some of these as we kind of went through the presentation, but what I'd like to highlight is that we did give 29 different AP exams over the last 3 years. So that shows that we're doing a really good job of offering multiple different courses for our students. Highlighting that our students were given access to the world languages exams even if we didn't offer the class. I think that that's something where our college and career readiness counselors really did a good job of getting out there and meeting with students to ensure that they knew that they had that opportunity to be able to take the exam even if they weren't enrolled in the course. Again, just really great to see our school sites working together with CMI being able to take some of their students over and take courses at Paris High. I think one of the challenges is when you have a small school like that you can't offer as many classes. If you only have 6 or 7 students, it's really difficult to be able to fund a section with that many kids. So being able to have them work together has been really great. And then just some of those emphasis on more students taking some of the computer science classes. I think we're going to see that number continue to grow over the next 3 or 4 years with our engineering programs at each of the school sites, really focusing on some of those STEM programs. I think we're going to see some growth in that as well. And then just wanted to give you a quick little snapshot of kind of the demographics with our AP exam participation. I won't read through everything, but this just kind of gives a breakdown of the different grade levels for our students. So you'll see with 9th grade, we had 133 students. Most of those students are taking the human geography. Some of those students are probably taking the AP Spanish language and composition. I know at Heritage we have students feeding in from Romoland that are actually taking the AP exam for language as 8th graders. So when they come to us, they can actually directly enroll into Lit if they choose. So that's a neat opportunity. I know that Pinacati is now offering Spanish for the 8th grade students. So we should see some growth at Paris High also, and we've seen a lot of growth with the enrollment at Paris High in those two courses, but I think having the Spanish offered at Pinacati will also help support that. And then this is just a breakdown of our race and ethnicity of the students that did take the exam. I think when you look at the overall numbers, they pretty much correlate to the students. Our demographics for the district pretty much correlate based on the number of students that are enrolled in the AP classes. We don't see any really big discrepancies, which is good to see, because we did take a look at that to see if there was any big gaps in what our overall percentage was for a specific subgroup, and we didn't see some big discrepancies, so that's always good to see. And then just these are the focus areas. We talked a little bit about the AP collaborative that we're going to be doing 3 pull-out days this year, so really focusing on those instructional planning reports. There is a new AP enrollment process. Students are also going to be signing up to take the AP exam much earlier than they're used to. Usually that's something that happens in the spring. That is actually something that will take place in the fall this year. So we're doing a lot of work, we'll be doing a lot of work around that in September as far as how that's rolled out at the school sites and how we encourage students to commit to take the exam that early in the year. It's something that the College Board did a lot of research on, and they saw some results that showed that more students committed and did take the test and did well by committing early. It kept them focused. So we're hoping to see that same correlation with our district as well. And then just really helping teachers understand the resources. The College Board has kind of resources at nauseum that they oftentimes just don't know how to access it. So being able to work with our College Board rep, they're going to take us through and making sure that everybody knows and understands how to access those. We'll continue with our AP readiness days at UCR. They have, I believe it's 8 days scheduled, and last year, Paloma again had one of the highest number of students that actually participate in the AP readiness. So that's exciting to see. And then just really focusing on student recruitment and retention, and making sure that we're providing support for our teachers to continue to improve our AP scores. So, any questions?
Just one last question. Are we going to support the students with the fees for
Yes.
the AP classes? Everybody or?
So we do have it for students that are on free and reduced lunch. That is an automatic. But if students aren't able to pay for the exam, we don't require them to have proof. We work with all of our students to ensure that they're not taking the test because they can't afford it. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Item 12.2, attendance update.
Yeah, this time we have our annual attendance update. Our Director of Pupil Services, Robert Ruff, will come up and give us an update in regards to attendance from last year and plans for this year as well.
Good evening, President Garcia and the board, Superintendent Bennett and Cabinet. Thanks for this opportunity to kind of give you a recap of last year and a vision of what's to come for the year and our aspirations for how we're going to get our students here, because all of the things we've discussed tonight only matter if we get them in the door, right? We've got to get them here. So as always, we begin with tie everything to our LCAP goals and providing a safe environment where students want to come to school. I want to give a real shout out to all of our principals in the back of the room there. We have made a real push at the behest of Dr. Newman to get out and check out how is supervision. And to see our principals out in this heat welcoming students every morning and waving to cars, and those of you who have done that know that's not easy when you're running a school. And they're getting all their people out. It's been a very welcoming environment at the beginning of the year here. So they really deserve some credit. You have some overall numbers. We had last year 10,349 students come through our doors. And I use that phrase very specifically because I think we've captured something this year that's new, that we've never looked at before. And I want you to keep that in mind of 10,349 because that's normally, and I looked at Ms. Raines, not the number we think about. We think about being just under 10,000. Well, why is that so much higher? And I'm going to come back to that because that's a new piece of data that we're going to consider with you and our work this year. As you do look at this data, it's important to note that you're looking at data that's given to us by the company we work with, A2A. They measure it a little differently than the state. The state on the right in red, the number isn't so important as just to note that if you attend any period during the day, the state counts it as being present. And thank goodness they do because we get money for that and we help you. Ms. Raines is like, that's great. But A2A gives us a much more nuanced picture because what they do is any 6 absences creates a day of absence. So you get a little more nuanced snapshot when you're doing the kind of detailed research we're hoping to do when we analyze what's working and not working in attendance. So the data you're looking at is not the state measurement, but the A2A. Yes, sir.
We are a 7 period.
I'm sorry. Most school districts go by 6 periods, so their equations are set up 6. Yes, sir. It's a great question, though. We brought this to you last spring because traditionally our district has looked at the ADA to enrollment calculation. And that number, again, is from census time up until the end of P2, the 3rd Friday approximately in March, who was here and, how much apportionment we get for them. If you remember back, the way that works is if you come all year long every day and Dr. Rouse comes half of the year, then we would get a 1.5, and that would be about a 75% rate. Does that make sense? But if you come all year every day and you come only half year every day, but then you leave, we would still get the same equation. So your actual attendance rate is a far more accurate measure of who's actually coming to school on a daily basis, because that means out of the time that you were with us, how much did you attend? And that's where that second rate's a little higher. When we look at our total absent rates for the year, they are slightly higher last year. Uptick from 48.2 to 49.7 in truancy, slight uptick in excused absences. We're encouraged that we're still seeing that downward trend of 5 to 6% from 2016 when we began the A2A initiative and these heavy communications and our attendance specialists going out to the homes. You might ask, why is it slightly up last year? We have several working notions. One, a lot of rain last year, and that really impacted everybody across the state. The second thing that impacted almost everyone is a change in the law, and that was when students ceased to come, we could go out to their home, find out they had moved or left, and we used to be able to drop them back to their last day of attendance. That is no longer the case. Now we can only drop them back to the day we discover and we verify. So there is some slippage there, and we're going to talk about that in a few slides, that's a very important aspect of our plan. And it also led us to a big discovery that when students don't attend anymore, we have to, really do the detective work, get out there, find them, and then once they're gone, we can drop them. This next slide's really busy on the screen, but we have it in front of you. You may want to look at it later, and it gives you a breakdown of each school and the different areas of attendance from truancy to excessive excuse. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it does give you a richer breakdown and something you might want to peruse later. The total absence summary is good news. About 44% of our students have really satisfactory attendance. 26.8 are manageable. And I want to really point out that area in purple to you, that 12.9, because as Dr. Araux talked about, please present actionable data to us. That tells us the sliver of kids that we really need to focus on. It's a little bigger than a sliver, actually. It's 12.9, but the number's about 1,255 students. those are the students that we need to truly pay attention to this year and to make a dent in our absenteeism and get them to school, is that manager, that chronic group just from 10 to 19. The students that are over 20% actually normally have much more severe issues, and that lanes we need to focus them as well. But Dr. Garcia, or Mr. Garcia, you talked about mental health. Those students that are missing over 20%, there's usually something else going on rather than just not coming to school. There's some serious family trauma or mental issues or interventions that need to take place. So we're conscious of them, but in terms of the scope of normal attendance interventions, that 12.9 is a really targeted group. And the others are more of an intervention, mental health approach. Our communications were extensive. This year, over 31,000 parent communication pieces. I'd like to point you to this middle 3 bars so that you know you're really getting a bang for your buck for what we're doing in terms of outreach. 5,787 families received, or kids received, that first letter. If you look down to who received a third letter, it's 80% less. So that tells us the efficacy of those letters and those parent communications and those home visits, that we're knocking that down. If we weren't making those, these numbers would be very high. So those letters really, in those contacts. Very excited to tell you that we met with A2A last week, and they've added another layer. Parents will now be getting text messages when their kids are out and they're receiving these. So sometimes you get that phone, but texting seems to be a real avenue to our parents, and everybody has that cell phone now, so we're really excited about adding that component. I see a smile on your face. Yeah, they can't delete the voicemail anymore. It goes straight to mom or dad, that text message or guardian. So we're very excited about that component. They said, do you want us to turn that part on? And we were like, hallelujah, turn that bad boy on, right? So we were real happy to see that. We were also happy to see this next slide. So the green line, A2A works with school districts throughout the state. And that green line represents their average save rate. So these are kids that are starting to be absent. You do an intervention and an outreach, and then you save them from becoming chronic and having terrible absenteeism. And if you look, particularly 9 through 12, their average tends to be about a 50% save rate, and our principals and the staffs that they lead are working very hard. They're up around 59 to 57%. So we're beating the average across the state in terms of how effective those interactions and interventions are. So it's a nice thing to see, and it's proof of the hard work. As always, we want to look at all of our, do some disaggregation and look at our student body in different ways. It's probably easier to look at the handout than the screen, but I was encouraged to notice that if you look at what the areas you see in green are students with excellent attendance, the light blue are satisfactory, the dark blue are manageable, and the area you want to look at the bottom are those purples. That's your endangered group. And if you look, our white students are 16%, black 19%, and Hispanic 18%. We do not see a great disparity in the ethnic groups in terms of their absenteeism. It's quite across the board. So, we don't want any students to miss, but it's always alarming if you see one particular group that's missing at a higher rate. We don't see that. We see across the board, they are tending to be the same. So I know it's a passion for this board and this, our leadership to have equity, and we do see equity across the board there. This next slide is a little confusing. We debated to put it in, but it's so powerful I wanted to bring it to you. If you look at that black line down the center, to the left is attendance. We take a 6-week snapshot of how absent a student is. We then look at a SARP meeting when we invite the families in and we meet with them and talk about it. And to the right is how did they do after the 6 weeks after that SARP meeting. And what we see, if you look at the bottom, is a 31% improvement rate. That is far beyond most districts. It is really, so before that, there were an average of 1,785 days missed, and afterwards 1,232. So it's a significant and powerful interaction when we can meet with those families on a one-on-one basis and have that discussion with them about their particular kids' days. So this slide really shows you how powerful those meetings are. And this next part is the section of the presentation I'm most excited to bring to you. We really thought, well, we're seeing some similar data that we've seen before. But maybe we need to look at this with a new set of eyes. And we dug into some individual kids, and I'll go back to those kids that have left us. Why are there more kids, 13 under 95, coming through when we tend to average under 10? And we began looking at a couple of things in a new way. The first, you'll see a calendar of the year. The days in green are the days when we had far better than average attendance. The days in red are when we had far worse, well above average absences. And you'll see some alarming things. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. They're, you know what? They look a little green on mine. I think it's turquoise on the handout. It's blue. Yes, sir. It's blue on the screen. You're like, green, bruh, where's the green? No, it looks kind of green on here. It's blue. It's blue. I think I'm not colorblind. I got it. Okay. So the blue days are good days. Nice and cool. Kids coming to school. Red days, not good. And we could spend hours on this. In fact, Dr. Newman and I spent, 45 minutes just talking about this page. But some alarming things drop out. You'll see the day after Halloween is a big day off, right? When Halloween falls on a Saturday, we do pretty well the next Monday. But when Halloween's on a weekday, it's pretty big. You look at November 1st. So that's what we had to start looking at. Well, why is that day in red? When we look at February, our ski week, you think you give kids off a week, they would be pretty thankful and families would be happy, but it's nice to stretch that 9 days to 12 or 13. It's a chance to go visit somebody out of state, out of country. I get that as a family, but so we really need to do, so how is this actionable data? Once we know this, we need to do a PR campaign to before the breaks to really encourage every classroom, every teacher, every administrator, every counselor to say, hey, I know it's tempting to extend it or to leave early, but we're doing meaningful things the day before. We're doing very meaningful things the day after. To prove that, if you look in June, those last 3 days in blue, Mr. Freeman, those are finals days. When we have a meaty, heavy point day that really affects your grades, kids show up. If you look at the similar at the end of December, there's a holiday at the end of that week, but those kids showed up because there were finals. So we're really talking with our principals. We meet with them next Tuesday to try to get a dialogue through the PLC process about how to encourage students and make those days before the breaks very meaningful. We've all had our own kids, what are you doing? Not in our district ever, but your kid comes home. Can I stay home tomorrow? You're just showing a movie in my class. I'm sure, mijo, stay home, right? Why not? We can't have that. We have to make every moment matter. Yes, sir. Yeah. It's funny, there's a national referendum to make it on a Saturday, the last Saturday of the month. But we don't have control over that. Well, that might be something we can do too. I know calendars are set almost a year and a half in advance. Maybe those are the kinds of things. You see how this is actionable data that we could look at our calendars. We can look at what's happening. We also see along those lines after February an alarming thing that people begin to take Mondays and Fridays off. And we always knew that was kind of a problem, but this accentuates it's truly a problem. So we're going to be talking about using our incentive monies a little differently this year and drawings now on Tuesdays for those kids that were there on Monday and Friday, and to encourage them we can see if we can put a dent in those Monday, Friday absences. But this is very actionable data that helps us make some decisions as we engage students. The next thing is very powerful for me personally. When I was a principal, I was always aware of students who were coming late to the school year or leaving early. And we call those students mobility students, and I don't think we've ever measured it. And I think some of the data you're going to see now, it was profound for me. And it's going to go school by school. When we look at Heritage High School, total of 2,780 students, 381 chronic, 13.7. But if you look at how many students added the year late or left early, there were 490 of them. Of those, 244 were chronic. That's 49, almost 0.8, 50% of our students. Most of you as parents don't move your kids in October, November. You wait till December, or you wait till the summer. These are families that are in movement, and we've got to be very sensitive to that this year, welcoming them, learning their story, finding out what's happening. Because after being in this district for a year, I've seen these principals and their staffs at work. We're creating welcoming schools. Kids are happy there. They're safe there. Every staff member is making them feel welcome. What's happening is we have families in distress, and when they're, moving. Now, we should also clarify for you that mobility means any student that attended more than 30 days. If you only came for 29 days, you won't be in this cohort. So you stayed longer than 30 days, but you didn't finish the year with us. We also started this data after Labor Day because that first little group is kind of, we can run that. They don't show up in our chronic cohort. And we were more intrigued by those students that come, they're in our schools, and then why they leave, but we can certainly get it for you. Yep. Yeah, it's alarming. If you look at Paris High School, you have 21 to 59 students, 14.2 chronic rate, but 394 students have come late or left early, and there's 66% of those are chronically absent. It's a profound number when you realize that who's missing? Who's missing school? We think we found it now. It's these mobility kids that are truly in danger. We don't. It's hard. It's very hard. So we're hoping the social work interns can be of help in this. Counselors already have difficult jobs. Now that you understand kind of those numbers, you can move a little more quickly. If we look at Paloma, we can just look at the bottom. 432 students left early or came late, 56%. It's really across the board. If we go to Penicotti, their chronic rate was 17.7, that top row on the right. They had 169 mobility kids, 87. If you take 87 from 160 in that middle two bubbles, their chronic rate really is about 8%. But when you add in these highly mobile families, that's where the chronic rate comes from. It's not that school's not a great welcoming place. It's families are against. On the backside, we also need to do a better job and attack this by something we call the 5-day absent list. And this is not just our focus this year, but our focus at the very first day of school. Every Monday, our APs now are running the 5-day absent list. They are calling and notifying these families. If they cannot notify them, the attendance specialists are going out to those homes so that if they have disappeared, we can drop them 6 days after, 7 days after they've stopped coming. Because in the past, maybe they didn't show up for 5 days, 10 days, then we're making the visit. Those are 15, 16 days of absence that are going to be on our docs, our books. So we've got to do a more effective and really responsive, it has to be every Monday, every week, running those lists and calling, and that involves everybody at the site. So this is a really focused action plan this year on the 5-day absent list. Who are our missing kids and why are they missing? And can we do an intervention to help that family and get them back? Or do we have to get them off our books? So part of this is a data game as well as an intervention game. Saturday school's always important. It'll be a big push this year. That's the flyer for this year. We've made a separate flyer for each school. And then we were happy to report that we've got a big push for September Attendance Awareness Month. This is the district flyer, but we've made one for each school. We're getting a banner, and I have a meeting tomorrow with the city of Paris to do a joint initiative with them, and we'd like to do a citywide campaign about getting to school and the importance of attendance, and we're hoping that Sonia Rascal is going with me. She's very persuasive, and we're hoping to get our district attendance poster on the giant marquee off the freeway there. So hopefully next meeting I can tell you we scored that, but that's our aspiration for tomorrow. We'll see if we can score that. Yes, sir.
I realize this is labor intensive, but every student has
So they do, and it is labor intensive, and I think those are the kinds of ways we need to slow down. Normally, we might look at the QM, and it's high school, so let's look at the grades they're transferring, try to make sure we give them the best academic counseling, get them in the right courses for graduation. I think we need to slow down a little bit more, and, you know, why is it you're coming in October? What can we do with that story? Yeah. Yeah. No, it happens. Divorce, go live with dad in Oregon. This is a kid we just had. And then back to us. It's very traumatic. And, you know, when they left our school, they didn't really get enrolled there for 2 or 3 weeks. They left that school and came back, didn't come back to us for 2 or 3 weeks, and started to be absent. We need to know their stories individually. And that's where you used the word nurturing earlier, Dr. Raux. This is nurturing work. It's time consuming, but it's really where you can make the difference. Yes, sir, Mr. Nielsen.
I was curious as to why the students are not all on the same level on that one. It is on our
Oh, you know what?
here, but the pictures are kind of weird and wonky on that one. So I was wondering which one was actually going to show up on the.
No, it will be this. We'll make sure we cut that. You know, I've reviewed this sometimes. I didn't notice that. Thank you. I don't know. Somehow when it transposed, is it? I don't know. But we'll make sure when it's up there, that one's not empty. Thank you. I'm glad you pointed it out. You had some questions throughout, but at this point, that's sort of the end. Our focus this year. Any questions for me as we begin the journey on attendance this year?
I just have a comment for you and Dr. Newman. Really thank you for focusing on this important element. And the innovation is the first time that I have seen this calendar, and how you mentioned actionable data, identified what we can do. And I could notice, with all due respect for other presentations with data, right, that sometimes we said, oh, that is boring. But when we see that we can do something about it, and I don't know if that was just my feeling, but I could perceive that level of interest on saying, oh, this is important, oh, this is something that we are going to do. And we as an adults, today I was talking with one of the teachers, and we were talking about motivating students if they are interested in the knowledge. When do you have students wanted to go to a math class? The majority of the students, they don't, right? They don't see, in a lot of questions when I have talked to students, what is that? When am I going to use it? What is that is important? What is the relevance of that? And one of the teachers mentioned, no, I'm really happy because I'm teaching financial math. Believe it or not, the students want to be in the class. They run because they know that if they are going to be missing something that I'm going to be presenting. So the same thing here. And thank you for making this presentation and identifying the issues that we need to focus on, and really making that difference with the students. Because for a lot of them and a lot of families, we are their only hope. Here, you, the teachers, the administrators, we are the only hope that they have in order to break that cycle of poverty. Because that is the cornerstone of a lot of issues that we have, right? And if we really need to, if we are going to make a difference, that is the way I always have said about the educational opportunities. And in every board meeting, at the beginning, how do we start the meeting? With one phrase in the Pledge of Allegiance, with liberty and justice for all, social justice for all. And that's what we are doing here. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. And thank you, Mr. Bennett, for coordinating that.
Many of our students were the most stable structure in their life. Yes.
Mr. Bruff, I like the part when you got to we found the problem.
Oh, we really think we're onto something.
Yeah, with the mobility. I've heard from some people that the word is out. Your attendance techs are showing up to people's houses, and they're talking about it, and it's a good thing. And I have never heard that before, and I think that's a great thing because people know someone is going to show up if the kids do not go to school.
We'll share that with them. Get them to do even better work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 13.1, General Functions, Quarterly Uniform Complaint Report Summary for April-June 2019. Item 14.1 is an action item general functions, did I miss something? Randy, you gotta step out, please. Don't. You'll find out. Item 14.1, general functions, resolution number 119-20, trustee compensation for missed meetings. Mr. Freeman, is there a motion?
Second.
Mr. Nielsen. And Dr. Rao. Any discussion? Please vote. Item 14.1 is a 4-0 vote. The stipulations.
First time I ever heard of a board member being put on timeout.
Item 14.2, personnel, certificated personnel action items. Is there a motion? Dr. Rao? Mr. Nelson? Any discussion? None? Please vote. Item 14.2 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.3, personnel classified personnel action item. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Rao, was that Mr. Nielsen?
Correct.
Any discussion? Please vote. Item 14.3 is another 5-0 vote. Item 14.4 is an action item, personnel, new job description for facility supervisor and authorization to recruit. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Nelson?
Second.
Was that Dr. Freeman I heard? Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to talk about this just a little bit. Hector, this is going to be for you. The list of job duties was quite long, and you're looking for someone to work this position. Do you feel that you can get all of this out of one person, the way it's written?
One of the covers, so that position is going to have a variety of duties and tasks. I mean, they're going to help me. It's going to be in support of the facilities department and what we do. So there's items on there that they will be doing quite extensively. Items on there that they'll be doing occasionally. But I wanted to make sure we covered kind of the duties that I do and that they would be helping me with. So that's why I made sure we touched on a little bit of everything in there.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Good list there. Will you be their direct supervisor or his or her
yeah.
direct supervisor?
Yeah, I'll be their direct supervisor. They're going to be the facilities supervisor, facilities planning supervisor. So they'll be working directly under me.
Okay. Okay. Well, I have confidence in that you can put them to good use for sure. I know you're busy.
It's a very busy position. As you know, we have a lot going on, and just want to make sure that we're maintaining the level of service and the level of the things that we do, and making sure that everything is covered.
Okay, and this is for 2 years, from what I see, right?
Yeah, it's perfect spot for a facilities person, a person with construction knowledge and experience. Somebody that's close to retirement, come in and finish off their, I would say, what is it, golden years, or getting ready to ride off into the sunset.
Not on that job. No. Okay.
By the time we get to our golden years, we're too old to be able to ride anywhere.
Yeah, it's a 2.5 year position to finish off the Liberty High School and get things down to a manageable level again.
And budgeted through the construction budget. Okay. I just wanted to talk to you directly.
Oh, yeah,
and,
no problem.
Knowing they were going to work for you, you're the person that's going to
Yes.
manage them. Okay. All right. Thanks, Hector.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, gentlemen, please vote. Item 14.4 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.5 is an action item, personnel declaration of need for fully qualified educators for the 2019-2020 school year. Is there a motion? Mr. Nelson, Mr. Stafford, any discussion? No? Please vote. Item 14.5 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.6 is an action item, personnel, short-term assistance for the Business Services Division. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Dr. Freeman, Mr. Nelson. Any discussion?
Just one thing I discussed with Grant previously. This is a ratification. This has already occurred and getting ready to end. So I expressed that it should have been listed as that. It shows under business services, which you would assume it's a position in business services. It's not. It's a custodian. So let's just make sure we put this where it belongs, because this is a ratification. I assume that's correct, right? Grant?
Yes.
Okay.
The
Okay.
work has started. Hasn't completed, but the work has started.
It has started a while ago, and getting ready to end. Okay.
When did it start?
August.
August 7th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's all for me.
Any other discussion? All right, please vote. Item 14.6 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.7, another action item, personnel. Approval of tentative agreement between the Paris Union High School District and California School Employees Association and its chapter Paris Valley 469 regarding the 2019-2020 reopener negotiations. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Rao?
Second.
Dr. Freeman? Any discussion?
Yes, in order to put this in the right context, the union, as far as from the district perspective, this is fine. But I should caution the union on what you're doing, as I can't tell you how to negotiate. There's a lot I can't say that would fill in the blanks. My previous experience, seniority is everything. You do not give away seniority. If the union chooses to do so, that's at their own peril. But I think I would like you to go back and take another look at this or do something with this, but I come from a union. I've spent my first career total union. Seniority, there's a lot of ins and outs that I think maybe you just didn't hit on, probably didn't come up, I don't know. But it's hard to tell you that you're getting ready to step in a hole, but I'm going to tell you, you're getting ready to step in a hole. Okay, come on, Josh, come on. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for checking it out. And there was a couple concerns raised. I'm going to refer to the transfer language specifically, or seniority. I'm actually going to look to Kirk on if I cross the line, but part of the conversation was if it becomes an issue to rehash it, renegotiate, because there was some concerns raised, and it's well documented in the minutes. But again, we're at your guys' discretion when it comes to the approval.
Okay.
Well, we all have an opinion regardless, and we're only telling you this because we all took an oath to be up here, and the oath consisted of doing what's right, and that's why we're telling you. We've already had our conversation with the district and cabinet, so we're telling you now. So whatever the vote comes down to, regardless, because we're all individual people and we have constituents just like you do. Regardless, there's pressure from every side. okay? As my partner here says, sorry, I'm thinking I'm at work here.
Say the wrong thing.
As my colleague says, he's telling you something so you're aware of what you're getting yourself into. So just take heed.
Sir, I don't know if it would be appropriate and help me here. You can stop me, Mr. President, at any time. You mentioned that there were some concerns and this on the minutes and that you talk about rehashing it. Can you expand a little bit on that? What would be the meaning? Probably not. Rehashing is reconsider it, revote it, or just clarify the meaning of rehashing. Yeah, if you can, if you can, you can tell us. I cannot talk about it. You don't have to.
I don't want to cross any
Yeah,
lines. There was a conversation about possibly leaning towards favoritism when it comes to certain things. And that's where we discussed if it starts leaning that way, that this might need to be renegotiated as a reopener.
And your entire team was on board with this?
Yes.
And then I want to ask another question. I don't know if it's off, but what was the voting numbers? The yays and the nays?
We had 14 members show. We had 14 approve, 14 yes, 0 no.
Interesting. Okay.
Sir, when you talk about the possibility of renegotiating it, was conversation, can you share if it's possible? If not, don't do it. What could be the process that? Asking the cabinet or the board or asking who to renegotiate that? At what point? Reopeners for the next contract,
That's 3 years.
immediately, or what was the situation?
So
Yeah, not a problem.
there are provisions within the collective bargaining agreement, both of our collective bargaining agreements, both with the teachers and with the classified employees, that each party has the opportunity of opening several articles as reopeners throughout the course of the 3-year agreement. And so with that would be a reopener. That's how you would reopen that article, and then you could come back and renegotiate it.
Okay, from what I'm hearing, can it be fair to say that when you say throughout the 3 years, if it gets approved today, not approved, how do we say, confirmed, ratified by the board, we can have that, or they can call for reopening tomorrow? Because you said in the time of 3 years, or there is a time frame that they need to wait?
There's a specific time frame. There's reopeners each year during that 3-year successor agreement.
Okay.
I can pull it up for you specifically right here.
And one more time, in the meantime, he looks at that. The only objective is to be fair, do what is right, and there were some opinions, right? You were some concerns. You already heard about that for you to look into that. But it's a union decision. Is what you
and my 2 cents what it's worth right now. If it's my understanding though, if it doesn't get ratified, then we don't have a contract, so we'd restart negotiations if I'm not mistaken. This is like the last step of the 610 process that CSEA has for revocation. So it doesn't pass this, then it doesn't pass. So it goes.
We can't advise you.
I'm just saying I think that's where, you know.
You would have to go through your avenues.
As I said, Josh, there's only certain things I can say. Just wanted to be very honest with you, and hopefully maybe you have conversations with your union people at the state level. And
I appreciate it. There are conversations that are.
okay, you guys are hashing it out. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, we're waiting for Mr. Spanish.
It's okay. The reopeners, they don't start immediately. So the reopeners in this particular one, I'm having difficulty finding it right here at the tip of my fingers. But it would be reopeners would come in the fall, so we can negotiate in the spring for the new school year. Okay.
Unless we don't approve, correct?
That's 1 year.
Yeah.
Need to be pursued by the union or the board, either side?
Either side.
Okay, either side.
And that's typically, in terms of the negotiation cycle, how it works. So you come to a 3-year agreement, and then After you've reached that, then the following year you have reopeners, and the following year you have reopeners, and there's limits on what those reopeners typically are. And then, so that gives you 2 years of reopeners during a 3-year agreement, and then the following year you come towards a successor agreement again.
Everybody good? You good? All right, please vote. Item 14.7 is a 3 opposed, 2 in favor, and 0 abstain. Item 14.8, action item, curriculum French textbook adoption. Is there a motion? Mr. Stafford? Mr. Nellison? Any discussion? Please vote. Item 14.8 is a 5-0 vote. Just happened. That just popped up. Item 14.9 is an action item, curriculum ratification of memorandum of understanding with Tina Holt. I hope that's correct, to facilitate anger management education and substance abuse prevention education support groups funded through the local control accountability plan supplemental and concentration funds at a total cost not to exceed $30,000, not the general fund. Is there a motion? Mr. Nelson, Mr. Stafford, any discussion? No, please vote. Item 14.9 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.10 is an action item, curriculum agreement for professional consultant services with Charles Baster, or Bass, how do you read it? I don't want to say that. For the Bastar, thank you. For the Paloma Valley High School Video Studio Design Project funded through the Career Technical Education Incentive Grant at a total cost not to exceed $87,500, not the general fund. Is there a motion?
Second.
Dr. Freeman, Dr. Rao, both doctors. Any discussion?
Hector, you're up.
This one?
Yeah.
Art.
Okay. They are.
Yeah, I think it's actually in our, I
Give me
think
a
it's
quarterback.
Diane. I think Diane is this one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about the actual work that was done.
Oh, the actual work? Okay, Rubens will have to answer that question.
Well, this is for the video studios design, right? Yeah. Okay. Question, how far this is design work and some construction, and what are going to be the additional costs beyond that? Because I can see in the contract certain things, furniture not covered, the lighting systems not included. What are we looking at as a further price tag
So
for
we
this?
have furniture, we've got the furniture bid, and we also are waiting for the equipment bid, which the teacher is putting together and working with the county to determine the equipment needs. So we anticipate the furniture, and I'm working with Dawn, and getting the best quote is about $45,000, and the equipment will probably be around $40,000-50,000. So we're anticipating about we budgeted about 150, 175.
I'm not trying to be rude, but the last time I heard a scenario such as this, they were talking equipment alone was about 70,000. Are we getting like lower quality equipment?
Well, I'm waiting on the bid from the teacher. I'm not the expert in that area, so they're
Please
putting
don't think
together.
I'm being disrespectful. I'm just
Oh,
telling you
gosh,
what I
no.
heard.
Oh, heck.
Yeah, I don't want you guys to be offended or anything.
No. The teacher's working with the county in creating a project list for us.
Okay.
So we don't want to move forward until we get the rest of the costs involved, because, we may phase in based on our funding, our available funding
Okay.
for our
and-
CTIG grant.
It's out of the,
So right now, the furniture, it would be ideal. It's like the sprinkles on the cake. It's got, they're L-shaped, they've got privacy walls so that the kids can do video editing in specific bays, but it's not required. They could probably do the same work on nesting tables and chairs.
Okay.
So we're trying to create a space that's industry specific, and so we may have to phase in some of those things. So we're waiting on the equipment list next.
so with the equipment, who do we work with? Do we work with technology on that, or?
Well, we continue to work with technology on you know, on the networks and the placements of the drops and so forth, but we pretty much work with Ruben and Art with regards to the lighting specifically. This is our consultant. They'll be working with the county and the teacher.
Okay.
Our goal is to create an industry-specific space that the kids can, you know, that they can participate in that's very relevant to industry.
Yeah, I saw the broadcasting desk and all that. So my question was really pretty basic. How much?
Well, our original estimated budget was about 150 to 175,000. So this part right here, the design of the actual set itself, which will be a model of like a news desk, very similar to this, where the kids are doing shows, news items, green screens, and so forth. And so the editing bays and furniture are coming next, and then the equipment.
Okay. Have we done this at any other sites? I know Panacotti had a small type video
No,
room.
this is no, not on this scale.
Not this scale, okay.
The teacher that had left, he retired, and so when we decided to take this time to really build out the space so that it will meet industry standards.
It'd be similar to what they have at Val Verde, right?
We wanted it to be better than Val Verde. Those were our instructions to this gentleman right here. He did a fabulous job on the set design. It was beautiful, and they have won awards, and our goal was that we're going to do that.
Okay.
And we want it to be better.
Good.
So initially, when we planned this out, was about 150 to 175,000 from our CTIG, which is our Career Technical Education Incentive Grant money.
Okay.
So we're in our final round of that. So we do have available budget. So that is our big project for this year, is to really build out that space for Paloma, and it's needed at Paloma.
Yeah, I
for their
remember.
CT pathway.
I remember the old room. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to be a nice little facelift. So we would, once it's done, we would hope that you guys would all come out and check it out.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. That was my question.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. Ruben, yeah.
That was great.
Ruben.
All right, cool. Great, even better. Do you have any other questions related to the building? No? Good.
Don't stay there too long. We'll come up with some.
That's the truth. Any other discussion? None at this time, please vote. Item 1410 is a 5-0 vote. Item 1411 is an action item, curriculum agreement for professional consultant services with Gears 2 robots to provide after-school robotics programs funded through local control accountability plan supplemental and concentration funds at a total cost not to exceed $40,160, not the general fund.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Nelson, oops, wrong person. And Mr. Stafford, any discussion?
No, just a question. Is this going to be we can put them on, a kind of a club, or how our students are going to access the after school, or a class?
I will get, okay, Diane, come on back up.
Ruben, you want to join her?
Ruben? That's good, Ruben.
Oh, Lord. The Gears to Robots contract, we've had them for about 6 or 7 years. They're part of our after-school program. They help facilitate and mentor the kids in our robotics programs. So we have about 15 teams. They're the ones that have come to visit and show their robots off, and so they compete with the first Lego Education, and so they travel between here and Monrovia.
Yeah. So, but how do our students access that? Is that a robotics club, or?
Yes, it's an after-school. Yes, it's part of the after-school program. So we have mentors from Gears to Robots that work with the individual teams at all of the 3 high schools.
Oh, okay.
Does Panacotti have any kind of?
We tried. Yeah, we tried. There's a lot of opportunities for after-school sports, engagement, enrichment, and so we've tried to get a robotics. It's a hit and miss, honestly.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know what the next item is on the agenda, but I could stay up here just in case.
Please vote. Item 1411 is a 5-0 vote. Item 1412 is an action item, building and grounds, ratification of awards of bids. One category for the California Military Institute demo of Building Q project to asbestos instant response incorporated, funded through various facility funds in the amount of $336,444, not the general fund. Did I get that right? Okay, just making sure. All right. Is there a motion?
Second, okay. Okay, same question.
Who's my second? You?
So it's a district-owned facility, so that's why the district board has to approve it. The only things actually that would go, in my world anyway, on the CMI agenda would be contracts that they enter into as their own entity, but we're doing this work because it's our site.
Any more discussion?
Yes, more. Hector, I'm gonna get you.
That one is me.
Okay. Ruben. Just a little discussion about, I know that site well. I actually saw the building's been torn down, and the asbestos on that site, I know it's an old site, you're gonna have it all over. Have we had that inspected recently to know that it's all contained, that it cannot get airborne?
Yes. So our HERA report is updated. They do supplementary reports yearly. I think it's every 5 years. Art?
They do a manual every 5 years, every 2 years, every biannually they do a HERA report.
Yeah, so every 2 years, and then there's a big report that comes out every 5 years. So what they do, they go through everything that's been identified at a site, which CMI does have items that are identified. They're all contained in the report. And they go through and make sure none of it's been disturbed, removed, messed with, make sure it's all encapsulated. If it's an area we can reach, we go in and we abate it and take it out. But for example, the Q building that we just took down as part of this project had some mastic that held in some windows, some window putty. That they came and abated. It was painted over. It wasn't a danger to anybody. So as part of the demo, they come through and they abate that. There was some tubing that was wrapped in that white asbestos pipe wrap from back in the day. They came and abated that. So as part of this project, there were a couple of things. Our consultant came in, abated it, and made it safe and took it away.
So I don't remember every detail, but I remember some. As we tear down the other buildings, let's just look what's going to be affected. We'll have similar issues.
Yeah. So our next big demo project is going to be at Paris High School, and it'll be the same thing. We have our report. We'll bring our consultant in. Actually, before you start the demo, they go through and they abate. They make sure there's nothing floating in the air that's going to be released when they start knocking buildings down. So the consultant, we bring in a crew. It's kind of a pre-phase, a pre-project to the main demo project. But it's included as part of the bid. So when we bid the project, the demo contractor is responsible for the abatement, and the district brings in our third-party consultant to make sure it's all happening the way it's supposed to happen.
Okay.
So asbestos is a naturally occurring mineral. It never dissipates, never goes away. It gets bagged, it gets shipped to a containment facility, and it's I can't remember what it's called, but basically we own it for the rest of, till forever. We own it forever. It's shipped to this facility. We pay to get it shipped there. There's no cost beyond that. But it's bagged, it's got our name on it, it stays there forever. It's shipped to, I think there's facilities in Arizona, in the desert, out there. There's facilities that contain all this.
Okay. I've had a lot of experience with asbestos.
Yeah, I know you have.
All in my lungs, but that's why I was concerned. I know some of the stuff is really old. And
yeah. So this company, AIR, Asbestos, Asbestos Instant Respond, is a demo company. But you know, in demolition, Joe knows this. In demolition, there's just so much asbestos in the world that it was just used so prevalently that it's a big part of the demo. So this company actually is a demo company, but they do a lot of asbestos removal.
Okay. Okay, that's great, Hector. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? All right, please vote.
That stuff is terrible.
Yeah, it is. Item 1412 is a 5-0 vote. Item 1413, action item, security ratification of agreement for professional consultant services with Kenneth Randolph. What he said, for campus supervisor training services, funded through title, yeah, I'm bad with Roman numeral. 4, funds, now I feel ignorant. Funds at a total cost not to exceed $18,000, not the general fund. Is there a motion? Mr. Nelson, Dr. Freeman. Any discussion? No, please vote. Item 1413 is a 5-0 vote. Item 15-1, business revolving cash report for June 2019. Item 15.2 is an information item, revolving cash report for July 2019. Item 15.3, board policies, business and non-instructional operations, series 3000. Oh, look at that. Action item 16.1, closed session if necessary.
Not necessary this evening.
Thank you, sir. Skip that one. Item 18.1, other items by the superintendent.
Nothing this evening. Oh, Candace does want me to share that.
You want me to share it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yes.
Grant doesn't like to talk about himself. Grant was nominated and is going to be serving as Santa Claus in the City of Paris Christmas Parade.
That's going to be bad Santa, I think.
And Judy, don't listen. I know you already know this, though. He's going to ride on top of a school bus like he did 2 years ago.
You better be careful. Make sure you got those insurance covered.
No.
Anything else? No, that's it. All right. Item 19.1, other items by the Board of Trustees. Dr. Arau?
No, sir.
Mr. Nelson? Mr. Freeman? Mr. Stafford? No. I think we've addressed almost everything, and if there's something we missed, I apologize. We'll get back to you. So that's my report now. Item 20.1 is an action item, adjournment of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for August 21st, 2019. Is there a motion?
So move.
Dr. Rao and Mr. Stafford, please vote. Item 20.1 is a 5-0 vote, and we are adjourning at 7:58 p.m.